Good day, poetry lovers. This is Jim Ransom with another edition of Morning Jim Poetry. This is the edition before we're leaving on a vacation to Michigan, which means that next week's session may be a day or at least a few hours delayed. Okay, I'm going to have two poets to present to you today that I haven't talked about before. And one of them is John Maysfield, who is a 19th and early 20th century British poet. And then the other one is Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry is an American poet. And he has a lot to be proud of because he's just a very busy guy. He was born in 1934, so he's actually 2 years older than I am. And it's been quite a while since anybody called me a spring chicken. So you know how that works. If you're if you're good at arithmetic, you'll be fine. Now, I'm going to soften you up with a great poem by the British poet that I mentioned from the last century, John Masefield. He's written a poem called Sea Fever. Sea Fever. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky. And all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. And the wheels kick in the wind's song, and the white sails shaking, and a gray mist on the sea's face, and a gray dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied. And all I ask is a windy day with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray and the blown spume, and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep and a sweet dream when the long trick's over. Maysfield has had a reputation that's gone up and down. He won a lot of prizes in his rather long life, but he did not have a university education and started out as a seaman. On his first voyage across the ocean, he jumped ship in New York and began to write, eventually returning to England. His poetry led him to several prizes, but his critics say he didn't write anything of note after 1915. I'm not going to get into that squabble. Sea Fever represents his best work from the pre-1915 period. Now we'll turn to Wendell Berry. He's even older than I am, being born in 1934. He's written novels such as Jayber Crow and Hannah Coulter. I haven't read either of those. Poetry has been his big thing, with several books and many prizes, and many poetry readings and many lectures. I'm going to start out by reading How to Be a Poet. And I have to say that I probably should have read this a long time ago. I don't know whether it would have helped or whether it would have put a stop to my fascination with poetry. Let me get this all organized here, and then we'll go forward. How to Be a Poet by Wendell Berry. And the epigram says, in parentheses, to remind myself. 1. Make a place to sit down. Sit down. Be quiet. You must depend upon affection, reading, knowledge, skill, more of each than you have, inspiration, work, growing older, patience, for patience joins time to eternity. Any readers who like your poems will doubt their judgment. I like that. Part 2. Breathe with unconditional breath, the unconditioned air. Shun electric wire. Communicate slowly. Live a three-dimensioned life. Stay away from screens. Stay away from anything that obscures the place it is in. There are no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places. Accept what comes from silence. Make the best you can of it, of the little words that come out of the silence, like prayers prayed back to the one who prays. Make a poem that does not disturb the silence from which it came. There's a lot of good advice in that poem, I think. Not that I've followed all of it, but there you are. Now, we've all had to memorize at some time in our life, or it would have been good if we had done, a table prayer or two. But Wendell Berry has come up with a prayer after eating. Table prayers generally are said before eating, aren't they? But this is a prayer after eating. I have taken in the light that quickened eye and leaf. May my brain be bright with praise of what I eat, in the brief blaze of motion and of thought. May I be worthy of my meat. Okay. That's the work of Wendell Berry, some of it. He's got much, much more to read, and I would urge you to do so. That's it for this week. Next week's effort will be delayed by a day or two as we are going to Michigan for a family vacation on the water. Maybe even get in a little fishing. Haven't done any of that since I was in Kansas. See you then, and have a very good week of your own. Bye now.